Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to Beyond Broke. I am looking really moody in my in my like really kind of like sultry and dark. I can assure you I'm not feeling sultry and dark today. I did have a jacket on, but I felt a little bit warm, so I've taken it off. But yeah, looking very dark. Welcome, genuinely excited to be here this evening sharing this masterclass. Um, just while we're waiting for some people to arrive, let me know in the chat two things. Let me know how you're feeling. Always interesting to know what emotion you bring into this evening's call. But also, what's the one thing that you think is at the heart of your expertise? It doesn't necessarily have to be what you're known for, but if you could sum up in one word the thing that you are most knowledgeable about, have the most either lived experience, qualifications, expertise, passion, what would that thing be? And I'm going to have a little nose of that in a little while. We are recording this session, so if you are watching this on the replay, welcome, hello. I know this time isn't always good for everybody. It is for me. I'll tell you a little story. Rose is on a residential. She is in sunny Cornwall for a week. And I'm on tenterhooks because none of the kids have their phones with them. But we have had an update today. So they left on Sunday morning, and we have had an update today that one child has already broken their ankle. They broke their ankle on the first evening of arriving, playing football outside when they weren't supposed to be. So we've had at least that one update, and it wasn't Rose, so that's good news. I am going to share my screen. If you guys can put yourselves on mute, it will help with any background noise. And there will be a little opportunity to share some questions and answers a little bit later on. But I am just going to check that you can see my slides. Here we go. So you should on your screen be able to see this bright bold yellow slide. Can you give me a thumbs up to let me know that you're on the right page with me? Brilliant. So you are in the right place. I am Julie Creffield, and you are here this evening to hear about how to stay solvent and sane as a CEO, consultant, or coach in 2025 and beyond. I'm going to be sharing a lot of juicy stuff about me. And what I want you to think about and take notes on, because this stuff will be like gold dust for you, how this resonates for you and your story. We all have a story, you know, what got us to this point in our businesses, in our lives. It's never a straight journey, is it? I was going to say a straight journey to the top. It's definitely not that. And often when you hear somebody tell their story, you connect to bits of it and other bits you don't. But the more we can connect to our own story, I think the more we bring to this world of expertise. We're going to be talking a little bit about AI and how, in many ways, AI helps us on the one hand to ramp up our expertise, and on the other hand, creates a lot of mistrust out there in the world. And that's kind of partly what we've got to navigate. So the purpose of today is to kind of get switched on I see so many people out there who I know to be real experts in what they do, but they're out there kind of fumbling around a little bit in the dark, not allowing themselves to fully shine. And yeah, there's going to be loads of those kind of metaphors today. So, you know, my call to action, my call to arms for you guys really is to get switched on about the real deep expertise that you hold and how it can be of use in the world that we're facing. Innovation is more than just survival. Who said that? I did. Julie Creffield. I've started to quote myself because why the hell not? It is not just about surviving. And for many of us that have been in survival mode, you will know that it's not a nice place to have to keep returning to. So it is about thriving in a world full of possibilities. And I say that with the caveat that when you are in survival mode, it's sometimes hard to see what those possibilities look like. And that's why connecting with calls like this and, you know, other people on the same journey as you can be quite helpful. What are we going to be covering today? This is our agenda. Good stuff, more good stuff, a little bit more good stuff, a little bit of space for some Q&A, and then some next steps. Okay, so by way of introduction, I'm Julie Creffield. I am an innovation director, a mission-led serial entrepreneur, a business strategist, an international keynote speaker, an award-winning writer and comedian, author of 14 books with 2 more on the way, 6-time marathon runner, campaigner, solo parent, creative genius, and as you can tell, very humble. Now, I can tell you that reading that out felt as uncomfortable for me as it probably did for you listening to it, particularly if you've been in my world for a while. But I noticed this with experts a lot, particularly female ones, I must say. It's quite often we skip over the things that make us credible, and we expect people to know these things about us. And we sometimes minimize our own fullness. For many of us, we're not just one thing. We've lived a rich tapestry that makes up all of the things that we are. And, you know, we kind of climb these ladders of trying to achieve things, and then we minimize them. So I'm kind of modeling to you how it's okay to take 60 seconds at the start of a masterclass and tell people what a bloody genius you are. That's your permission. But I didn't start off thinking that I would become all of these things. I started off in very, very humble beginnings. This is one of very few photos of me and my whole family together. I was probably about 11 there. I was at one of my uncle's weddings. My mum was a couple of months out from chemotherapy at that time. She had Hodgkin's lymphoma. And a few months after this photo was taken, my dad left, leaving us a single parent family, a household, which was very shameful for my mum, growing up in a Catholic family. She had a lot of shame around having so many children and being left on her own. At the point of this photo being taken, you can see I felt I was very bougie in my lace gloves. It was Madonna era after all. But I was full of hope. I thought I could conquer the world. I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to travel. I wanted to do all these amazing things. And I thought they were all possible. I didn't really realize how poor we were. I think I was in denial about that. I just didn't know. And recently I found this photo, which is the most unflattering photo of me that exists in the world. But this is probably just 2 years after the first photo. And we were living in temporary accommodation at the time. And it looks like I'm there with a pint of beer. I can promise you I wasn't. I was probably about 13, 14 there. And we were having a barbecue. It's my mum with her foot up and her fag hanging out of her hand. But we were in really dire straits at that time. We'd had to move out of the area that we were living in. I was traveling, I think, 90 minutes to school on the bus every day. And that sense of hope was kind of disappearing a little bit, for me at least. You know, teachers were telling me that I'd never accomplish anything. My mum was encouraging me to kind of go and get a sensible job and to stop being such a little cow. You know, things were quite hard. And so when I reflect on all of the things that I've done since then, all of the major brands and the huge kind of impactful pieces of work that I've managed to do, I sometimes question how I made that leap. What was it that I had inside me that made me believe that anything was possible? I remember a teacher saying to me, "Come on then, Julie, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And I remember flippantly saying, "I don't care, I just don't want to be broke." And that very much was my guiding star when deciding what I wanted to do with my career. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to feel important. I wanted to move away from this sense of not being good enough and being defined by the family that I was born into. This month, or last month in April, I celebrated 30 years in business. I started my freelance career when I was 17. I got my first, or 16 and a half actually, almost 17, got my first freelance project where I was working on a community project. And I remember getting my paycheck and thinking, oh my God, I can get paid to do creative stuff that really makes a difference to local communities. And reflecting on all of the different interesting projects I've done over the years, how abundant, how rich I feel having done all of those things. But not all of them equated to good money. And it's taken me to this point to be able to reflect and say every one of these experiences have huge value in the world that we now live in. And sometimes it's easy to kind of forget that. I now position myself as an innovation expert, and I speak on social mobility. So I talk about innovation and entrepreneurship and how diverse voices, diverse lived experience, enabling people to change their circumstances based on talent rather than kind of connections and privilege. Social mobility is the ability to climb the wealth ladder, moving from where your parents started to a higher income and lifestyle through your own efforts or opportunities. I wrote that in my book, How Not to Be Broke. And I wrote that book just over a year ago, I think it was, maybe 2 years now. And it was the first time that I really started to investigate what social mobility was and how it had impacted my life. I just thought I was really unlucky. But actually, when I reflect now on all of the challenges that I've had, even after getting a degree, even after getting a first class degree with honours and a master's, and really kind of hitting the ground in terms of my career, running, really being ambitious. In the last 30 years, I've been made redundant 5 times. I've had to manage unresolved trauma from my childhood, problematic relationships and trust issues that meant it was really hard to find co-founders and partners in business. Becoming a single parent, there is no doubt on this planet that that has had an effect on my earning capacity. Not having good financial literacy. No one taught me about money growing up. It was like, you get it, you spend it. Maybe you might save a little bit so you have a nicer Christmas. That was about the extent of our money mindset stuff growing up. And also, while I was living in London, I found myself being pulled back into kind of poverty dynamics all of the time because I was surrounded by it. And ultimately, when the shit hit the fan for me a couple of years ago, I didn't have a financial safety net. So in the world of entrepreneurship, often you'll hear about founders saying, you've got to fail. You go out there and fail and you'll bounce back. And that's really easy if you're, using the bank of mum and dad, or you've got money behind you, or a mortgage, or a house that you can get remortgaged. I had none of those things. And so, when you think about your situation right now, what have been those moments throughout your life that have taken you off course? And I don't want this to be like necessarily kind of the Julie show, but I just wanted to reflect on my lived experience in a way to help you think about those kind of moments that you could probably reflect on and add to your credibility, add to your level of expertise rather than take away from it. The question that every entrepreneur ever asks themselves, am I the problem? Is it me? Am I not good enough? Is that the reason that I'm not making enough progress in my business, enough money, enough kind of movement and momentum? Is it me? Am I the problem? And let's not let's not ignore it. It's really tough out there in business at the moment. There is, so much going on that is shifting the world as we know it. The rise of AI and automation, market saturation and overcrowding. There's never been so many bloody experts out there on the internet. The decline of authority-based businesses, or businesses that are based solely on expertise. There are ethical and social responsibility pressures now. It's not enough to just go out and make money. Loads of people are burnt out. I think people are still recovering from the pandemic. And there is a need to future-proof your business model. Selling expertise isn't always the only, the most viable way for you to move forward. Now, I devised a kind of quiz, an audit a couple of years ago, probably about 3 years ago now, to help people understand where they might be in their business. And it's sat on my website. I think it's still on there somewhere. And it's probably had about 1,000 business owners, maybe more than that, go through it. And I'm always fascinated by how many of them end up in that loss leading category. Now, lots of people would say, well, I make a profit, I pay taxes, I have money to live on. But what people tell me time and time again is it's not worth it. the effort that people put into their business isn't reflected in terms of the wins. And when you look at that in the context of, let's just talk about the UK, for example, I was looking at some stats earlier on around kind of SMEs, and I was looking at Enterprise Nation was where I got the stats from. And it said 1 in 5 micro businesses operate on less than £50,000 turnover. I was actually surprised by that. I thought it would be less than that. I don't know that their data is completely accurate, because I think there are so many people that are not even measured in that micro business space. People that are doing jobs, people that have side hustles, people that are, doing lots of different creative things to bring additional revenue to their business that may not be, measured by HMRC in the way that this data represents. And I think quite often we look at people talking about entrepreneurship and we listen to these messages that are about the unicorns. They are about the people that are building, businesses that are going to bring them huge amounts of wealth. And it's hard to figure out where we sit in that. How much of that advice is relevant for somebody that is maybe not being able to pay themselves properly? And so this was something that I journaled on probably just over a year ago. If your expertise and experience isn't the thing in doubt, maybe it's time to rethink its application to the world. I know when I am on top form, I know that what I know in my head and my heart changes lives. I've seen it over and over again. I know that I am able to transform people. I've always been able to do that. But I also know that sometimes the models that I choose for myself don't always give me the best chance of bringing myself out of the situations that I find myself in. And I think because I don't have a massive track record of working in corporate, I've always kind of shied away from that a little bit. And if we think about it, corporations is where the money is, not completely, but, there's a lot of untapped opportunity in sectors that you have little or no experience in. And so I had to really ask myself, am I willing to keep going round and round in circles, doing the same kind of work, dealing with the peaks and troughs, the feast and famine? Am I okay with that forever? And I realized I wasn't. I'd built my coaching business to that, that dreamlike state of multiple six figures. I did that or during the pandemic, but it came at a cost. And I realized that for me to continue growing that business, I would have had to make compromises on the lifestyle that I wanted and the relationship that I had with my daughter. And I wasn't willing to make those sacrifices. So I knew that something needed to change. And I started looking beyond my own experience. And I started looking at, despite the fact that I'd made so much money in my business, I still didn't feel financially safe. I still hadn't made the best decisions around things like pensions and investments. And, let's face it, I'm still single, and we know that there are stats out there that say, single people, it costs the most to live right now as a single person, particularly as a single mum. And so, looking at these stats, I knew that things needed to change. The pandemic saw everybody pivoting. I mean, hands up if you did not have to pivot during the pandemic. We had to change our ways of working. We had to change our mindset. We had to learn new skills quickly. We had to adapt. And then all of a sudden, apparently the world went back to normal. I don't think it ever did. And so this idea that you have to pick a lane and stick with it forever, I think is outdated. And I think the people that are going to survive this next phase, the age of AI, are going to be the people that can take their lived experience, take their wisdom, take their experience and apply it to this new world. AI can do some incredible things. It cannot replace the lived experience and the wisdom that is acquired over decades of human experience. It can't. It can't listen while a client cries. It can't hold a client's hand. It can't do those things. It can't sense things that happen in real time. And so as experts, we have an opportunity to be that bridge between these incredible technologies that are coming out and the humans that will be engaging with them. So to draw a line under my, let's call it my broke era, I wrote a book. Writing is my therapy. It's what I always wanted to be when I was a young person. And I wrote a book called How Not to Be Broke. And within that was this manifesto. The manifesto still sits on my pinboard up there. And it is an active living manifesto. I am reminded of it all of the time. On my down days, I look at it. On my up days, I look at it. And I'm really proud of that book. This month, I've been giving it away for free as a PDF. It felt like a really generous thing to be able to do. And I've got some incredible emails from people thanking me for, the juicy stuff that is within it. But as I said, I'm going to keep repeating myself. I knew things needed to change. And so for me, that change looked like a job. And maybe it came as a surprise to some people, maybe not for others, but for me, and I'm a year on now in that role. I'm an innovation director across 2 enterprise centres. We got wind today that there might be a third one on the cards in Watford, which is just down the road to where I'm currently living. And I'm on a pathway to becoming a senior innovation director for the company. So there are huge growth opportunities for me. I have learned so much. My confidence is just sky high at the moment. I've just started my 3rd degree. I'm doing a degree level apprenticeship that's been paid for by my employer on innovation and change leadership, which I'm really excited about. And it's being taught by people that are working at the BBC and working at the Design Council and London School of Arts. And I'm just loving being a learner again. And so the opportunity for me was to be able to say, I don't need to change who I am. I don't need to leave everything behind. It's not about starting from scratch. It's about evolving. It's about saying, everything that has brought me to this point has brought me to this point, but it may not be in its current packaging the thing that moves me forward. So when we look to the future, when we look to what the global workforce is going to look like, what the needs of humans are going to be, what does that look like for your niche, for your business, for what, for the ways that you want to show up in the world? What does that look like for the causes that are important to you, for the mission that you're on? If you are inspired by the global goals, which of those global goals do you still kind of feel aligned with? And what does that look like for you for the next 10 years? And I know 10 years feels like a long old time, but it goes by just like that. For some of us in 10 years' time, we want to be retiring. Will we have enough money to retire? Will we feel like we've done our best work? Or will we have loads more in the can that we still want to kind of work towards? Now, many of you will have seen this model before. It's a model that I designed when I was at rock bottom, and I was just curious. If I make progress every day, every week, every month for the next year, can I not only recover from whatever difficulties that I've faced, but can I actually bounce forward? Our lives go by so quickly. A couple of weekends ago, we were celebrating my mum's 70th birthday. And as the family historian, it's always my job on these occasions to create the montage video. And so I had the pleasure of going through all of the photos from the last kind of 100 odd years and piecing together the story of my mum's life. And it was an absolute joy to do. And, those big shifts that happen in somebody's life, they don't happen overnight. It's a series of steps. It's a series of commitments. It's, often a group effort, moving in a kind of direction of travel towards the legacy that you want. And I know this is kind of big stuff, but it's important. The challenge is, though, when you're at rock bottom, when you are hugely frustrated with where you are in your business, you feel like you don't have 12 months. You feel like in 12 months' time, I won't have enough money to pay my rent. In 12 months' time, my subscription for XYZ will have run out. In 12 months' time, I won't be able to go on that family holiday and so quite often when we're at that point of needing to change, we need to, create some urgency around it. I truly believe that you can completely do a turnaround in 12 weeks. I have done it over and over again. I've seen clients do it as well. In fact, I think in 12 hours, you can have a complete mindset shift and decide to do something different. Um, our kind of capacity to change and our aptitude to change will all be different for sure. But I genuinely think when we find the motivation and the mindset to shift, as humans, we have this incredible capacity to do so. And so, some questions for you. What if you are one brilliant idea away from everything that you want? I mean, that needs to go on a t-shirt. If ever I've seen a slogan that needs to go on a t-shirt. What if you already have the skills, experience, and wisdom needed to make that shift? And what if you just need to have the guts, and I was going to say balls, but guts is a little bit better, I think, to reposition yourself boldly and to claim it? Each and every one of these logos represents a brave commitment to change. Some of these brands have been on here for well over a decade. In fact, last week I was doing some consulting with a charity called the Golf Foundation. They're a 1.5 million pound turnover company. Their mission is to make golf more inclusive. They do work in schools and with major golf agencies to change the face of golf and to make it something that more children can take part in. And actually, the core thing that they care about is mental toughness. That's the thing that drives them. They use the sport of golf to help young people to become mentally tough, to find resilience, to find grit. I never knew that about the charity. And actually, on the way into work, I was talking to Rose about it, and she said, I've got a meeting with the Golf Foundation. She said, are they posh? And I thought, gosh, if a 12-year-old can figure that out. But actually, they do incredible work. And while I was talking to the founder, I was telling him a little bit about some of the work that I've done in sport. And it turns out that when I was working for, and I don't know if their logo is on there, I did some work for London Sport, and I was managing an 11 million pound budget to for a program called Sport Unlimited that did that. It was there to help make some sports more inclusive. And I actually founded that, not founded, I funded that charity probably 15 years ago. And I didn't know that. So these things come back round. They come back round over and over again. And things that you forgot you did all those years ago often give you credibility. I mean, how many of you have forgotten those projects that you did 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that you can revisit with a new lens? Where you can say, actually, this does give me credibility. I can get in front of other companies like that. It's always about perspective. And sometimes it's about facing yourself. It's hard out there to be visible. It's hard showing up on social media, feeling like you're a fraud. And this is why when we choose our niche, when we choose our expertise, we have to be so connected to it that we are not afraid to go out there and talk about it every damn day. Social media is a drain on your energy when you don't feel confident about it, when you feel like you're getting crickets. I am not as prolific on social media as I have been in years gone by. Many of my posts get no engagement whatsoever. And yet every month, between 40 and 100 people join my email list. I consistently get 40 to 60 people sign up to masterclasses like this. And on average, 10 show up. Another 10 will watch the replay. And every month, one or two, sometimes three people will start working with me on a one-to-one basis in mentoring and consulting. That's all I have capacity for at the moment because I'm doing my consulting work alongside a full-time role in effect, although I might be going down to 4 days quite soon. And so it's about what works for me right now in my life as it stands. Sometimes we have to face up to where we're at, draw a line under things, and decide that this is where I'm at for now. It's time to rethink, to reassess your own reality, to escape the echo chamber. When's the last time you joined a new community that you're excited by, that you see new opportunities where people don't know who you are yet, where you have opportunities to kind of infiltrate in a kind of ethical way to find new opportunities? When's the last time you did a stakeholder engagement map where you looked at the organizations that care about the same things you care about? It's time to take ownership of your IP. If you do not protect your intellectual property and name it as such, then you're just another expert out there doing the same as everybody else that does what you do. You have to harness your true differentiator, and that's really hard. To find that thing that is unique about you. If you can't find that about yourself, get other people to do that work for you because they often will see it before you can. And you have to innovate your model, and not just your marketing. Quite often people have a rebrand. They'll go, oh, things are a bit tired. I'll have a refresh. And they get new photos, maybe a little bit of new branding, but their model doesn't change. And we see this with major corporations as well. Change the name of their product, put a new brand out there, but all of a sudden, another 5 years pass, profits continue to go down, and then all of a sudden, bankruptcy. We need to navigate the next chapter with intention. We can't just wing it. We're running out of time. Like, unless some invention means that we can live to 200, most of us have got a finite amount of time to do good work. And the hardest part of all of this, oh, it's so hard, is killing what no longer serves you. It's the decluttering. It's the saying, as much as I love that thing I created, it's not bringing me money. It's not working for me. I need to do something different. And that's hard. It's really, really hard. But how? And it's the question people say all the time. Yeah, that's all well and good, Julie, but how, but how, but how? I genuinely think that it is about legacy and thinking beyond the here and now. But not everyone connects with that. I developed a program called the Legacy Master Plan. I still think it's one of the strongest programs I ever created, but the name did not resonate with people. People thought that legacy was about what happens once you're dead. I don't believe that's true. I think it's about what you do now, the choices you make now. But it wasn't getting traction. And so it remains a principle of the work that I do. But as a name, my audience told me it wasn't what they wanted to buy. And so I've had to kill that program. Don't get me wrong, there are elements of the IP that I still use, but as a concept, it just wasn't working for me. So how do I kind of move forward? What am I doing now? Ultimately, what businesses want is profitability. It's interesting. I've shifted from working with predominantly female business owners to predominantly male business owners. Across Oxford Innovation, we have just shy of 1,000 businesses. I was doing a little bit of research earlier today. Less than 6% of those businesses are completely female founded. Less than 6%. So day to day, most of the customers that I do consulting and mentoring with are male, and it's been a real culture shock to me in terms of the things that we talk about, the things that are important to them. Don't get me wrong, some of those men are heart-led. We do talk about mental health, and we do talk about mindset, and we do talk about confidence, but predominantly these are the things that we talk about: profitability, performance, process, platforms, product suites, proposition, sometimes personality. Quite a lot of the businesses that I work with, the founders, are not that keen on social media. But they are, many of them, purpose driven. They come up with their business ideas, and they, move forward with it because they had a purpose, whether it was to do with the product or the service, or whether it was to do with changing their own lives and providing for their families. So my Profitable by Design framework is a new framework that I now use with all of my consulting clients. It's not really a staircase. I'm probably going to do some work on what the model looks like, but ultimately my clients tell me which part of these they want to work on. And mostly what I find when I start working with new clients, they have a lot of this in place. And normally it's some intensive work on one or two of these areas, and all of a sudden they're profitable again. we do not have to reinvent the wheel. Now, I was reflecting because I wanted to give you a kind of live example of how you reposition your expertise. During the pandemic, or it might have been before, I can't remember. I think maybe it was before. I think maybe it was the year before. I had a program called Nail Your Niche. I look at the eyeliner on that photo and go, yeah, I don't do eyeliner anymore. So it's old photo, old branding. But that program, Nail Your Niche, I probably had about 3,000 clients go through that program. And on the whole, mainly it was a free challenge. And that free challenge would get hundreds of new clients into my world, or prospects into my world. I would showcase what I was able to do with them in a really short period of time. They would always be left wanting more because, you know, nailing your niche isn't always something you can do in 5 days. They would make some progress, but there'd always be more questions than there were answers. And then off the back of that, I would sell many of them, probably 12 to 20 at a time, into a program that I run called Tribe Builder, which would help them take their niche, build an audience around it, and then monetize that audience. I still help people to nail their niche. I don't always talk about it in that way, but I think with AI being so front of mind, I see a lot of people trying to nail their niche using AI and doing a really shit job. And so my Nail Your Niche materials are still just as valid today, probably 5, 6, maybe 7 years on, as what they were back then. And so I want to refresh it. And so I was thinking about, for you guys, there's probably a program that you have, or a set of IP, or something that is uniquely yours that you could adapt for the age of AI, right? You could probably, and I say the age of AI, not because I think you need to use AI or teach AI or build something that uses AI, but that's where we're moving to. We're not necessarily just in competition with our peers anymore. We're in competition with ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and Perplexity, because if you haven't got money in the bank, or if you are not willing to invest that money because it's easier to get to type in, how do I do XYZ? That's what we're competing with. So, you know, I could absolutely continue running Nail Your Niche as a free challenge, but I can tell you I do not have the energy to run free challenges anymore. I just don't. It's not in alignment. I don't want to overpromise, underdeliver. Doesn't feel good to me to do that. I want to work with people that have the capacity to take action on the things that I do. I could develop it into a DIY tool with the help of AI. So I could refresh it. I could create lots of interesting AI tools, prompts, things that will help to speed up the process. And I'm thinking about doing that because it would be a way of people accessing my IP and my expertise in an affordable way. Or I could do it in a done with you model. And even done with you could be a group program, it could be one-to-one, it could be VIP days. But ultimately, it's the same piece of expertise. It's just packaged up in a slightly different way. Now, I'm a little bit undecided as to what I'm going to do, but I'm committed to repackaging. And at the moment, this is where my thinking is. I'm probably going to do something next month in June around nailing your niche in the age of AI. It will be done with you. It will be a mix of self-study and live support, structured, proven process using design thinking tools, which is definitely what I've been learning about over the last year, using AI prompts that amplify your expertise, but in ways that make it sound like you, not like the AI drivel that comes out of a lot of people. And the idea is to give you everything you need to reposition yourself in 6 weeks, right? So this is about speed and taking action and being able to monetize super, super quick. I want to kick this off in May with anybody that buys this program with a one-to-one call, because I want to set you a piece of homework that is going to use a bit of AI to do a bit of an audit of everything. And even that one exercise, that one-to-one call may be enough of a session for you to go, right, now I know where I'm going to go and how you might take your new piece of insight into a profitable new program or product. And then there'll be weekly learn and implement sessions from June. And I think the learn and implement part of this is really important. I don't just want to teach how to do this. I want to help teach and get you to implement and to activate there and then. The really kind of that idea into action part is really important for me. It in its current shape, and I'm just looking for 5 people to do this with me, will be 3 payments of 333. So it's a month's worth of hybrid one-to-one and group work, very much like a mastermind. So lots of done with you, done on your behalf, me going away and thinking things through for you. And as I said, 3 payments of 333. Just to give you some examples of the types of people that I work with. And, you know, I hate sharing testimonials. I've got a real resistance to it. There's part of me that doesn't like claiming other people's expertise because they do the work, you know. I just help shape it sometimes. Also, the other thing I've been reflecting on is lots of the clients that I work with, I sign NDAs. I can't talk about explicitly working with them. So the people that you see on the screen have given me explicit permission to talk about the work that I've done with them. And I think we need to, this is just an observation for me. I've definitely bought into people's programs before where their testimonials are shining and just incredible. And then when I do the program's shit. And then I realized that the testimonials were for a different program, or they weren't really that true, or those people got that program for free. And, you know, so we've got to be really careful in terms of how we leverage trust as a buyer, but also as a seller. I think ultimately now your niche in the age of AI will be called something else because I'm not in love with the name. I think where I'm at the moment is it will probably be called the Authority Refresh, which I think is a bit more of a grown-up name for kind of the world that I'm going into. But I am still in the design process of this. Some of you might be laughing at this. I remember back in the day, particularly during the pandemic, where Julie would get an idea on Tuesday and by Wednesday afternoon, she would have sold 4 places on it. You know, that speed of idea into action, I was unstoppable. I don't really want to operate in that way anymore. I want to be a little bit more considered and take my time to really design things properly. And I think partly that is about me up leveling my expertise and knowing better, knowing that sometimes speed to market works and sometimes speed to market just makes things hard for you. And I'm going to just rephrase this again or reframe it again. Innovation is more than just survival. It's about thriving in a world full of possibilities. And I think one of my superpowers is helping people to see the possibilities of themselves and of the world and of the businesses that they run. I think that's all of the slides that I want to share. Oh, apart from this one final one. This is my mum on her 70th birthday party with all of my siblings. And the reason that I share this is lots of people wrote my mum off. After she had 6 kids and my dad buggered off, a lot of people thought that my mum would never be able to recover from that she would never be able to rebuild her life and create a legacy. And she has shown everybody wrong. My mum's done some incredible things with her life. She has raised 6 brilliant humans that do amazing things out there in the planet, and she still knows how to have a good time. And so there is an opportunity for everybody to bounce forward and to make our stories be part of that narrative rather than to be embarrassed by those moments that were tough. Okay, so I am going to stop sharing, and I would love some reflections, some thoughts, anything that resonated with you, anything you would like to share with the group before we wrap up. And look at that, for once I haven't overrun. I've actually left some time for Q&A and thoughts. Anybody brave enough to go first and just share what come up for you over the last 45 minutes or so? Scott, I'm going to come to you.
I was about to type in the chat box.
Okay.
And then I thought, because we spoke recently and I said I'd get in touch. And what you've done tonight is confirmed that there is value in us having that conversation.
Yeah.
And as you know, I've been not around for the last couple of weeks. So next week, I'll be in a best place to make the most of your new energy and make it my new energy.
I love that. And Scott, I want to reflect on I shared this in a different group with you. Sometimes you know people for ages and you know what they do, but a little reframe shifts everything. So just while we're on this call, I'd love for you to share what you do, so that there might be people on this call that are interested in your work, and just, if you would, that little shift that we had around the language and any thinking that you've managed to have. I know you've been busy the last couple of weeks, but it'd be really helpful to everybody on the call, if you wouldn't mind.
So the legal background I have is something I'm escaping from, an escaping lawyer, and I'm bringing the skills of the legal world into the business world. And I've badged it under how to be more compelling. And that was the word you hadn't heard me use before. You liked that.
Yeah.
And one of the areas that you thought it might be fruitful to look at would be people who do what I used to do and still do a little bit, and that is mumble a bit because of various reasons. And that's one of a number of kind of directions that we can talk about going in. I'm not sure that executives, lawyers, accountants are the only place that I should be targeting. It's a natural place, but not necessarily the best place. And I agree with the whole ideas of innovation and being who you are, but not being wedded to who you have been.
Yeah. And actually, what I was thinking about just now as you were speaking, a lot of people that come from, let's say, not posh backgrounds, would love to be able to speak with the confidence and kudos and gravitas that lawyers on the whole tend to have. And I wonder whether there's something there around, learning those skills in order to elevate in your profession, whatever that profession might be. Lots of people that maybe speak with an accent, that sound working class, that have interesting things going on with their language, know that for them to do well, it's not about necessarily code switch or anything like that, but it's about being confident in your own way of speaking. I think there's something in there, particularly around younger people. I was thinking about, people leaving university, going for their first jobs, and I was thinking about it today. We've been doing interviews at work, and one of the girls that was interviewing couldn't make eye contact, and we couldn't really hear what she was saying. Prime example, a little bit of confidence, a little bit of coaching, and I think she could have done the job, but her communication skills let her down in the interview.
One of the reframes I need to look at is using, now you don't know this, but my tool is called the gravitas elevator. So that fits with what you were saying there. And that it's not only going to be for those professional types,
Yeah.
but maybe the words are too scary for those that don't see themselves in that vein.
Yeah.
And that reframe for me is something that I'm really struggling with, because I need to get out of my own way and I need to get into the headspace of my better prospects.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. It's really
Thanks.
helpful for everybody. Hyacinth, I'm going to come to you only because I miss you. I haven't seen you in ages and I want to hear your lovely voice.
Oh my God, Julie. It's good to see you. I was actually surprised to see this. That was just really interesting. I'm just this funny kind of place. I'm going back into doing my work, but in a very different way. So I feel like I'm still sitting on my fence, because I've got two lovely people I've been working with who've been great actually, but it's not around the business. It's more around the personal stuff, because I think when I pause, I don't know if you know, I pause for health reasons anyway. And I've now got on top of those health reasons, which is brilliant. But I'm also was looking at it thinking, I don't want to be back in Facebook. I don't want to be back doing these things. So now I'm just playing with how I want to be back. And also I was looking at the legacy program the other day, all of the stuff, because I'm starting to put all of my stuff together, because I just thought I want to write. I really want to write. And I want to just package and sell what I have, because I've just got so much content. it's wasting, and I don't want to do lots of small groups of handfuls. I just want to get it out en masse now.
It's
So a
interesting.
lot of legacy.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say, I don't want to go on Facebook, like I don't want. And isn't it funny that our brains go back to what we have done, what has worked for us previously? You know, I am, and I'm saying that you guys are hearing this for the first time, I am closing my Facebook group. I hate it. I love the people in it, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't serve who I am now. The Julie Creffield innovation and social mobility expert does not hang around in Facebook groups. She's
Exactly.
out there speaking on stages, being the producer and creator of content that people consume, rather than having groups of people and their lack of engagement consume her. And it's nothing about the individuals in that group. It's more about who I need to be to reach my goals. So, I think a great thing for us to each journal on is, how do I get what I want without having to do things that I don't want? And there's always a way. Right. I'm just going to have a quick look in the chat to see if there are any questions here. Let me just finish on this one. I love communicating where I'm at. I love doing these workshops. I love seeing who comes up. From my perspective, there is never, at least there isn't anymore. There used to be. There is no pressure for me to sell on these anymore. I do them as part of the movement and momentum of engaging people, sharing my content, showing what I can do, showing what I'm about. However, if you would like to work with me, either in the context of Now Your Niche or whatever that's going to be called, or in any other context, let's just have a human conversation about it. I am, for all of you kind of woo-woo people, I'm a massive fan of numerology, and I am closing up my year one. And year one is all about starting over, right? I'm about to go into year two, which is about pinning things down. So I still have space in up until the 5th of June to be a little bit free with how I share my expertise and the work that I do. Then I will be making a sole commitment for my year two. And that's when Julie starts to get serious and starts to have really good boundaries about how she works and how she doesn't. So I'm allowing myself in the month of May to be human and to be generous and to see what opportunities and collaborations kind of arise. So if you're interested in doing some work with me, then drop me a line. Let's jump on a call and see how that might work. All right, guys, thank you for your generous attention this evening. I hope some of it landed with you. Do let me know what did, and I will see you out there online or in the real world sometime soon. Ciao for now.